Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm David Rose. As we put the spotlight on a new rapid DNA testing system that could be rolled out across our state as soon as next year, these mobile devices promise to help detectives quickly focus in on the right suspect from the start of an investigation. From property crimes to violent assaults, the rapid DNA could also keep the wrongfully accused out of prison. Two companies, Thermo Fisher Scientific and Andy Corporation, have developed rapid DNA testing machines that have been approved by the FBI. The devices are about the size of a printer. They're easy to use. Thermo Fisher says someone can be trained to operate its rapid hit system in about half an hour. Former King County Sheriff and Congressman Dave Reichert is a big proponent.
These rapid machines, you can take the DNA swabs at the scene, put them in the machine, 90 minutes, you'll have a DNA profile.
For example, first responders used rapid hit to identify victims after the Surfside condo collapse in Miami.
The process of identifying these victims is very difficult. We're going to be relying on DNA testing.
They took cheek swabs from family members of people missing in the disaster and compared them to samples of bodies found in the wreckage. Similarly, Andy Corporation's machine was used after the 2018 fire in Paradise, California that killed more than 80 people.
Our huge need at this point is for families that have missing relatives to get swabbed, a parent or a sibling of the folks that are missing.
The devices proved highly effective in the field, quickly putting names to remains and letting families start the grieving. Unlike the highly sensitive machines used in DNA labs that can test tiny samples, like the spit on a cigarette that solved the 1995 murder of Patricia Barnes in Kitsap County, these systems require large cell samples. They need a robust cheek swab from a living person or collection of cells from someone who's dead. The FBI has approved both systems to be used to compare samples with its CODIS database. Now law enforcement agencies are starting to use them on active cases. In 2017, Bensalem, Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia, became the first department in the country to make rapid DNA testing part of its booking process.
It's not about necessarily locking up people, it's about preventing the victim tomorrow. And that comes by locking up, getting the criminal off the street today. You give us an hour and a half start, we're gonna get these guys and gals.
That ability to quickly identify the right suspect is something that Reichert hopes will ease tension between police and communities of color.
If I today go to a homicide scene and I swab various bodily fluids, I send them to the lab and I wait 4 or 5 months. But I don't wait on the investigation, I continue, right? So I could be investigating 3 or 4 people, might develop probable cause on 1 or 2, get search warrants, maybe even arrest them, take bodily fluids, that sort of thing. Especially imagine if it's a person of color or underrepresented community member. So it makes the criminal justice system a little more equal in that now is looking at, sure evidence that puts you at the crime scene rather than probable cause evidence.
But the Electronic Freedom Foundation says not so fast.
The idea that the police are just going to collect from DNA from whoever they think that they want to collect DNA from, and then when they find a suspect, they're going to bring that person in, because that sounds like a surveillance state. And I don't personally want to live in a country like that. And I think that's a huge violation of our Constitution and our Fourth Amendment rights.
Last year, lawmakers in Olympia approved $1.3 million to start a rapid DNA pilot program run by the State Patrol. The plan calls for the State Patrol to acquire 3 scanning devices that are in mobile units. Those would be available for disasters and lower-level crimes that aren't already sent to the state's existing crime labs. Snohomish County is one of the local law enforcement agencies applying for a federal grant to purchase one of the rapid DNA machines.
Anytime we can, have another resource or another tool to use to assist us in our investigations, to bring justice to victims, families of victims, I'm not going to say no to it. I'll take whatever we can get.
The technology does have its critics.
In 2017, a Swedish government agency conducted a test of Thermo Fisher's rapid DNA machines and found multiple problems with those machines. And that was testing for single source DNA. So that's DNA where you know exactly where the DNA is coming from. It's just coming from one person.
The ACLU argues that rapid DNA machines are likely to increase wrongful convictions, saying that even professionally accredited labs make mistakes. And officers doing tests at precincts are a recipe for disaster. The Electronic Frontier Foundation also has concerns about how DNA samples are stored after they're collected. Right now, rapid DNA samples can be sent to the FBI's CODIS database to be compared, but they can't be saved in that database. Instead, the samples are sent to state-run databases. That's how it could work here. Samples collected at a crime scene that don't match to a suspect would be saved in the state patrol system to see if they hit against a later sample.
Really, this is the future of crime fighting, like right now, isn't it? I mean, this is not science fiction anymore. That's amazing.
No, yeah, if you've got a team of detectives and they're all following 4 different suspects because you want to make sure you're covering all your bases, right? And if you get a rapid hit and you can use the state database to get that DNA profile hit, then you're focused on one suspect, so it eliminates all kinds of time for the investigators. And it also helps the lab because it helps them with their backup on the rape kits. And it also helps the prosecutor's office because in a lot of these cases, if you go to a suspect and you say, hey, look, I was just at the crime scene 2 hours ago and we got a hit on your DNA and you were sitting on the couch and we found your saliva. What we're finding is they're more likely to give a confession when you have DNA evidence. It's like, it's not a polygraph test. It's pretty final. That's your spit on that couch.